Wondering how the dropper works in Minecraft? This video will explain the crafting recipe, how the dropper works, how to activate a dropper, the uses for a dropper, and the difference between a dropper and a dispenser. The crafting recipe for the dropper is 7 blocks of cobblestone and a piece of redstone dust in this pattern in the crafting table. The crafting recipe is similar to the dispenser, except the dispenser will have a bow in the middle. The dropper has to be mined with a pickaxe, otherwise it will drop nothing. To place a dropper, hit the use control or left click and the output of the dropper will face the player, meaning the part that will eject items. The output of the dropper can face any direction, including up or down. In Java Edition, the dropper cannot be pushed by a piston. How does a dropper work? A dropper is a redstone component and can be used to move items or transfer items to another container. In a way, it is similar to a hopper, except it can move items upward. If the dropper is facing a container, it will transfer the item into the container. For example, it will push items from one dropper into another. Some examples of containers include chests, shulker boxes, and hoppers. The dropper can be used to eject items. The dropper has an inventory of 9 spaces. When activated, the dropper waits 2 redstone ticks or 0.2 seconds, then ejects one item from its inventory. The dropper won't continue to eject items when activated. It has to be deactivated and reactivated again to drop another item. To eject multiple items, the dropper has to be constantly activated using a clock circuit. A clock circuit is a circuit that will turn on something depending on the timing. If the dropper is full, it will randomly pick an item when ejecting items. Also, with an item like an arrow, it will drop the arrow as an item instead of shooting it. This could be useful as specific items have issues with the dispenser, as the dispenser won't eject an item but will try to use it. The arrow is one example, but another is bone meal. How to activate the dropper. To activate a dropper, it can be done with an adjacent power component, meaning next to the dropper. Examples of power components are buttons, daylight detectors, detector rails, lecterns, levers, lightning rod, observers, pressure plates, redstone torch, target, trap chest, and weighted pressure plate. If a redstone torch is attached to the dropper, it will not activate the dropper. An adjacent strongly powered or weakly powered block can activate a dropper. A strongly powered block means the block is powered by a redstone power component, redstone repeater, or comparator. A weakly powered block means the block is powered by redstone dust. Basically, if any of these are facing into the block, they can power the block and the adjacent dropper. Powered and redstone dust that is pointed towards the dropper, on top of it, or a directionless dot next to it can activate the dropper. In Java Edition, there's also quasi-connectivity. This is when, even though there isn't a mechanism above the dropper can be activated by attempting to power the block above. The dropper is also an opaque block, so it can power adjacent mechanism components to activate. So what can the dropper be used for? One use of the dropper is to put several in a row, creating a dropper pipe. This will push items along the pipe. Another version is if you point the droppers upwards to push an item up. This is called a dropper vader. How these work is that you need to have a clock circuit and something like redstone torches or observers to activate the droppers. The problem is you will have to activate each dropper along the pipe to have the item keep moving. A redstone comparator can measure the fullness of a container, the dropper being a container, and output a redstone signal that could be used to activate the dropper. The issue is that with an upward and downward bubble column, you can limit the amount of redstone. Water streams can be used instead of dropper pipes. Hopper lines could also be used to move items horizontally. This doesn't mean droppers are useless. Water streams can't be used in the nether, so dropper vaders or dropper pipes can be used to move items for a nether farm, for example a gold farm. Also, in some builds, it makes sense to use droppers instead of bubble columns. What is the difference between a dropper and a dispenser? The first difference is that a dropper can transfer items into a container, as where the dispenser cannot. The dropper will eject items from it, as where the dispenser can eject items, but also has other functionality. An example is with arrows. The dispenser can shoot the arrows, as where the dropper will eject an arrow as an item. The dispenser can also be used to shear sheep in a wool farm, shear bees' nests for honeycomb, collect honey with glass bottles, collect water with water buckets, place shulker boxes, and use bone meal on blocks. There are also several other examples. The dispenser can be used in several different farms. The dropper doesn't have this functionality, but this could be used to eject items that the dispenser would have issues with.